Hello. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to me, Dan Burgess, and the Spaceship Earth podcast. And this is a little experimental episode, and there's going to be a few of them. So I'm now in week 4 of the pandemic lockdown, down in Bath, where I live with my family, and yes, what a mad few weeks. It feels like everything has stopped, and yet so much has happened. Anyway, I got an email about a week ago from a very marvellous man called Charlie Gladstone, who I'm sure some of you will know of. Does lots of brilliant things in the world, one of them being the Good Life Experience Festival, and another one being a great podcast called The Mavericks. And I got an email from Charlie about a week ago asking if I would send in some answers to 3 questions that he was posing to different people in order to make a remote podcast. And I did that, and Charlie's been releasing these episodes, and I really recommend listening to them. He's called them Love in the Time of Coronavirus, and they're just really lovely, honest, human reflections on what is going on for people right now. And I've enjoyed listening to them so much, so I decided to take Charlie's idea and put it out there into some other networks and create my own version of that and see what might happen. Just seemed like a really lovely thing. So thanks, Charlie, for that. I'm hoping Charlie is going to contribute something to this version of it as well. But anyway, he asked 3 simple questions. I've adapted and remixed slightly and have 5 questions. And I wasn't really sure what would happen. I just put them out. I've put them out to a bunch of different people, friends and people that I admire, and people that I think that have just, I was curious about their take on what is happening. So I sent them some questions, and I sent them 5 questions. And those 5 questions were, where are you and who are you with? What are you struggling with the most right now? What is bringing you joy in these times? Something you might have started doing or have always done. What do you hope will emerge from these extraordinary times? And then finally, the question was, when you think of getting back to normal, what bits of normal do you hope will never return? And those were the questions. And I also offered up the chance to share something, anything at all. So I've been getting things sent back, and I'm going to start putting them out on these little mini episodes. Charlie called them slow pods or something like that. And again, I wasn't quite sure what was going to come back in and how to edit them in and all that kind of stuff. But they are really beautiful offerings from people. So I'm just going to patch them together, 3 or 4 an episode, and try and chuck them out over the next few days. There's just lovely stuff in all of them, and I'm really grateful people have taken a little bit of time to send them in. So here we are, episode 1, Reflections from the Great Pause. I hope you enjoy them. So first up, it's George McCallum. Now, George is a filmmaker, producer, director, editor, amazing cameraman that I've known for several years. A lot of George's work explores social and environmental issues and stories which show the potential of people to make change in the world. And has often at times been following me around with a camera. George is a very insightful, beautiful human, and I was really curious to know what is going on for George at this time. But check out georgemccallum.com. You'll find out more about him and the films he's made and what he's up to. But let's hear from George.
Dan, you won't believe this, but I've just done, I'd say, about 20 minutes of talking, answering your questions, and I realised I wasn't recording anything. I hope that's making you laugh, because, you know, that's just like the worst thing to do when you're recording any interview. Finally, I get to record myself for a good cause, and I didn't record any of it. Had some good stuff that I was saying there as well. Yeah. Take a little swig of beer. Not bad. Dan. I'm in a one-bed flat in Walthamstow, East London, with my girlfriend. It's just us two, no kids. We're lucky that we are on the ground floor and we have a little outdoor space which gets the afternoon sun. And yeah, we see our neighbours and we keep social distancing from them. But generally, I feel like we're quite lucky having our little space, particularly the outdoor bit. What are you struggling with the most during these times? To be honest, I'm not really struggling with anything. I worry about my mum, who's living on her own in a flat without any outdoor space, and she's of a certain age, and she has some certain conditions as well that I'm sure coronavirus might worries me. Not really a struggle though. I struggle with trying to get my head around the data that we're given about coronavirus and its spread. I struggle with deciphering how useful a lot of this data is, and I struggle with the gross amount of fear that I think a lot of this data gives to a lot of people. I have discovered what I would call having more quality in doing less. I've always been an advocate for doing less and how it can actually be quality time. So I'm enjoying doing things a bit more slowly. Cooking I'm doing slowly, and that's been paying off, which has been nice. And just not putting any pressure on myself to achieve anything. I mean, I do, obviously, with things that I'd like to finish off, a bit of writing, whether or not I should be doing some of my own video projects. Sometimes I think I could be doing a lot more, but then I kind of recognise that that's just a feeling that I have anyway. And I'm noticing these feelings a bit more, that I have more quality time in not doing anything, not worrying about what plans I should be doing or having, whether I missing out on something. Like everyone's missing out, or everyone is gaining quality time with their family or with themselves. I've discovered that there's a lot of quality in not doing much, and that's time well spent, and as a result the days are actually going really fast, and I don't know if that's something to worry about or to enjoy. But I do about 10% of what I normally do, and and the day goes about 10 times quicker. I'm not sure why. What are you hoping could emerge from these extraordinary times? I really like the idea of nature telling us to go to your room and essentially to self-inquire. I feel like that this is a good time for everyone, even if you're a political leader or a CEO for massive corporations, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever agenda you have, we're all in it. We're all doing the same thing right now. We're all in it. We're all equal in our vulnerability to this and in our understanding of it, and in how we have to behave now as a result of it to stop the spread. And I think there's something very beautiful about people en masse around the world, millions and millions of people everywhere, potentially self-inquiring right now. The potential that could come out of this collectively, of people feeling more in tune with themselves, more in tune with what they love, with what makes them excited, and hopefully what might emerge is that we all have more of an impetus. And if that can happen on every level in our society, business leaders, political figures as well, then that's exciting. I hope that we don't just start rushing around again. I hope that we don't go straight back into the rat race and straight back into this list of ongoing achievements that we feel like we need to make, and if we don't, we'll suffer. I really hope that we're able to take some of what we've learned during this mass self-inquiry session, and listen to the things that we now have a bit more clarity on within ourselves, and how we look at our society and our connection to each other and our community and to our health, and just our connection to everything. I hope that we don't forget too quickly the lessons that we've learned during this time of self-reflection. Maybe we'll take our time a bit more and use our time in a more quality way. And that's it, really. Just don't worry about time so much, you idiots. Dan, I'm not very good at this. However, I hope you have enjoyed listening. I would love to see you. And yeah, let me know if you end up using any of this, and I'll tune in. All right, buddy. Lots of love. Send my love to all your family. And nothing but love, brother.
One thing I've been playing with and doing in the last few weeks is DJing online, and having a couple of sort of virtual free parties on the internet. And I used to DJ sort of semi-professionally many years ago, and I've still kept up my interest in house music, and discovered this brilliant little streaming app called Mixler, which basically you can rig it up to your setup wherever you're DJing from, and it creates a stream that people can click on and listen to, a live stream, and it's brilliant. And we've done 2 2 sessions, 2 Friday night sessions over the last 4 weeks. We've also thrown in like a Zoom room party for those that want to kind of watch each other dance in their front rooms, which has been quite fun as well. But the stream's been, yes, I mean, blown me away actually. The quality, the Mixler stream, you know, usually back in the day you tried streaming audio on the internet and the compression would just sound a bit naff. But the quality of the stream on this Mixler app is just superb. It's like chunky. So that's been something that I've started doing, which has been a lot of fun. So yeah, if you want to check out, also you can it records your mixes and you can chuck them up the archives as well. So mixler.com/Dan Solo, you can find that, and I might well do a stream this Friday. So if you follow me, it will notify you when I'm live on the internet. Anyway, moving on to my next contributor, which is the fantastic Lauren Currie. Lauren is someone I've followed for many years actually. Super interested in Lauren's journeying. She does a lot of things in the world. She's a designer by craft. She's been at the forefront of the emergence of the service design discipline and how that has developed over the last decade or so. She's now the CEO of a new startup called Stride, which is seeking to kind of democratize leadership development via a digital product. She's the founder of the Upfront movement, which is on a mission to change confidence in people, which is worth checking out. She's a trustee of the Design Council and the platform Pregnant Then Screwed. And in 2017, she was awarded an OBE for her services to design and diversity. Lauren is someone I always listen to when I can, because usually what she's got to say is insightful, spot on. And there's often some uncomfortable truths in what Lauren puts out into the world. She's someone that is courageous. She's not afraid to talk about the things which many of us want to, I think, engage with, but somehow, I think, struggle to sometimes bring them out into the open. So, she is a really important voice in the world. So, here's Lauren.
Hi, Dan. It's Lauren. Okay, where are you and who are you with? So I am in my studio in my house. We live in between London and Brighton. I'm on my own. My partner and my son, who's 2, they are in the living room watching tractors, I believe, on TV. What are you struggling with the most during this time? For me, having no childcare is really hard. So my son can no longer go to nursery, and obviously his childminder no longer takes him. So my partner has returned to being a full-time carer, which means he's revisiting the exhaustion levels that we thought we'd left behind us in newborn baby days. And that's really hard for all of us. For me, being the sole earner in my household is hard because I started my new job 2 months ago, which is a startup. We're building a digital product to change leadership development, which is really exciting. But of course, only 2 months in, my main job was all around raising money, raising capital for the company, which is a hard thing in normal circumstances and now has just become 100 times harder. We were in the process of moving to Sweden, so that's all been put on hold. which is just really annoying and frustrating. But all of these things are surmountable. I'm very lucky. We have a nice house, we have green space nearby, we're all healthy, we have financial security. So all of these things feel okay. What feels really hard and insurmountable is, the number of children that are going hungry, the number of people that are struggling, the number of women who are being abused, the number of people who are dying. And mostly, for me, like our government's shameful response to all of this is the thing that I've struggled with the most. Have you started doing, always done something that's bringing you joy in these times? I'm a designer, I'm a maker, so when things are hard, making and creating makes me feel better. So I've been writing a lot. I've wrote advice for organisations on how best to support working parents right now. I've been speaking, so I'm hosting webinars around leadership. The last one was around how to lead when you can't be in the same room as your team. I talk to my family in Scotland every day. My wee boy asks my wee brother to play him songs on the piano, and they watch sand timers together through the screen. It's really lovely. I FaceTime my friends every morning. I've started exercising. This is a new thing, and it feels really good. We've also been going on family bike rides, which is also a new thing and has been really lovely. What are you hoping will emerge from these extraordinary times? I hope that we'll collectively slow down, because I think that could be the catalyst for our populations that we've never had before, like something that forces us to stop, like really stop for a long time, and for each of us to sit with the discomfort that stopping brings with it. And I really believe that what would come out of that stopping would be positive, progressive change, even though the process itself would be painful. What bits of getting back to normal do you hope will not return? Oh, I've got such a long list. Where to start? So I hope we stop eating meat. Like swine flu, bird flu, chickenpox, SARS, like COVID-19 spread from animals to humans by humans eating animals. So this is yet another reason why every single one of us should be vegan. I hope we stop voting for politicians that cause harm. I hope people start to vote in bigger numbers. I hope more people campaign. I hope more people start demanding the change that they want in their life, in their workplace, in their street, in their community, in their house. I hope this starts a fire in people, a fire that will push them to be uncomfortable and speak out and stand up and demand the changes that they want to have. Although I do worry thinking about that stuff, because just in my lifetime we've lived through 9/11, the Australian fires, the Dunblane shooting in Scotland, Greta Thunberg's global movement around the climate crisis. And in the main, we've still largely remained attached to the status quo. And that's what makes me really nervous. Like, human beings are really, really good at remaining in the status quo. And I hope that this crisis is the one that bucks that trend. But then I get scared to think what that crisis would need to be for the trend to change. I hope we realise that the way that we do everything, like the way we buy houses, the way we rent houses, the way we live, the way we look after our children, the way we work, the way we learn, the way we play, the way we eat, the way we spend money, the way we save money, the way we love each other, all of these things is entirely up for debate and up for question. It's all made up. And I hope that people really start to notice that and connect with what that means. That we can do things differently and we can break away from the status quo. And I think that this pandemic has revealed a system that doesn't work. Like the way that we do most of those things I've just described is broken because they only work for the elite few. They don't work for everybody. And that's what needs to change. My partner and my son are now blasting Taylor Swift from the next room. I hope it's not too loud. And then there's a piece of text that I'd like to share. So these words are by Holly Whitaker. She's the author of a book called Quit Like a Woman. And Holly says, "It's not the pandemic that is breaking us, it's the system revealing itself. A system that reduces the value of caregiving, that operates off the backs of the most vulnerable, that keeps us all focused on our own survival instead of each other's, separate instead of whole. I keep scrolling through Instagram and I see humour and meditations and book lists and community gatherings, organising and pooling of resource to redistribute, so many beautiful offerings of hope and courage, and a new sensitivity to the severe precariousness of our existence, of others' existence. I also see a lot of stupid shit, but I am paying attention to the way that we come together. This is a new normal. It will not go back to the way it was, and that is a statement of hope. I hope we use this as a time to understand the absolute value of caregiving, that gig economy, service industry workers and all labourers need health insurance, they need paid leave, they need fundamental protections. Our entire people need health insurance, kids need food and not just when they go to school. Productivity is a lie. People need people. Flexible work arrangements and caregiving responsibilities are intrinsically tied. We have enough if we share. We are resilient. We are good. We are good. We are good. We are not separate, but we are a glow of red dots bleeding into a sea of red, connected on the most fundamental level. And this last quote is from Dr. Aisha Hamid, who's an international security professor at the University of Toronto. Dr. Aisha says, "Be slow. Let this distract you. Let it change how you think and how you see the world, because the world is our work. And so may this tragedy tear down all of our faulty assumptions and give us the courage of bold, new ideas." There we go. Thank you, Dan. Lots of love. Bye.
I hope you're enjoying this little experiment. I'm going to be putting these out probably every other day by the time I've managed to get them in and cut them up and edit them and all that kind of jazz. The Spaceship Earth podcast, it's over 2 years old now, and I'm loving doing it. I have a few go-to podcasts that for me have been, that's where I get so much inspiration from. Rich Roll would be one of them. Another one would be Matt Barr and his Looking Sideways podcast. Now, I don't know if you know Matt's podcast. It's an action sports podcast, and in the clue is in the title, Looking Sideways. It tends to be the people that stand on boards, snowboards, surfboards, skateboards predominantly. Yeah, I've followed Matt's podcast for a long time, and I love what he does. I love the people that he brings on and has conversations with. I love the spirit of his inquiry. He's always exploring, I guess, things from a much more kind of human scale element, really exploring people's very human stories around why they do what they do and what they learn through the journey that they go on. And he also does another one called Type 2 with Patagonia Europe, which again, if you're sort of interested in sort of where outdoor sports meets activism, that's well worth a listen to. But yeah, Matt's definitely been a big inspiration for my own podcast. Very inspired by the way he goes about his work, and I've learnt a lot from listening to him. So next up, it's Matt Barr from Looking Sideways.
All right, Dan, how you doing? Thanks for the message. Not too sure what kind of format you wanted this in, so I thought I'd turn the mic on, start chatting, see where we got to. So you've sent over a few questions to answer. Let's have a look at them. Question 1. Where are you right now and who are you with? So I am in Brighton right now, or Port Slade to be precise, with my wife Alima and our dog Peg. We have been social distancing for, I think it's 3 weeks tomorrow, because I sort of came down with some symptoms that were quite vague, to be honest, but close enough to sort of feel like I should take the self-isolation thing seriously. So we've not really seen anyone for about 3 weeks, apart from shop staff, neighbours and friends from a distance. I've seen my parents a little bit because I dropped off some food. They live in Worthing and they're late 60s, so kind of thought, well, they're under orders to stay in basically until this is passed. But we're doing all right. We've got a good routine right about now, so can't complain really. I think compared to many people, feeling quite fortunate really. I guess you're asking this in a minute. So question 2, what are you struggling with most during these times? I guess the main thing is just being worried about the health of friends and family really. Like I said, my parents are late 60s, so kind of told them they needed to stay in and keep out the way. Got some friends, like my wife's got asthma. I'm very, very concerned about that. One of the reasons we've been self-isolating for the 3 weeks that we have, just to really minimise that risk of her getting the disease really. As I mentioned, I think I had it I had very strange symptoms after a trip to France. The most telltale one being the loss of sense of smell and taste, which I've not had now for the 3 weeks that I mentioned, and showing no signs of coming back, which is obviously a bit unnerving, but again, as it goes, not something to be too concerned about. Question 3, what have you started doing, discovered, always done that is bringing you joy in these times? I guess it's routine really. Personally, I'm somebody who operates way better on a routine, I've realised as I get older. And, the old best version of yourself, kind of getting enough sleep, getting up at the right time, doing the exercise that you want to do, doing the work that you want to do, which appears to be, for some unknown reason, quite important for my sense of self-esteem. So I've been enjoying that. I've been finally, getting the chance to spend some time doing the things I've been putting off for a long time. Simple stuff like I've been doing yoga every day, which is on the to-do list every year. Usually start in January, get about 10 days in and then kind of go down to like 1 or 2 days a week. So I've managed to keep that up. Been going running, been cooking nice meals every day. I think it's probably quite similar, finding solace in those small acts of routine that bring some normality to the day. And also ticking off some of those work things that I've been putting off. I run the Looking Sideways podcast, and I've had things on that list that I've wanted to do for years and I've never really had time, so I'm getting through those now, which is good. I think if I can get through this period with a lot of those deeper rooted things finished, then that would be great. I think the other thing that I'm personally finding is, and I was speaking to a friend about this earlier, you don't need a lot to be happy, do you, really? You know, at the minute, it's all boiled down to the health of friends and family. Just turning those notifications off. And, you know, being fortunate enough to still have a job and having enough food on the table. And yeah, you know, that's suddenly about the sum of my ambitions, which is quite a nice thing. It almost feels, you know, blithe to say, but it is true in my case. Question 4, what are you hoping could emerge from these extraordinary times? I guess I am hoping that the positive things of this situation endure. So I think community is something that everybody appears to have noticed. It's by no means an insightful comment to say that. I've certainly noticed it, you know, speaking to the neighbours more. Got a couple of elderly neighbours that we've offered to help and get food for. That's obviously brought us closer to them. And, you know, you can feel the sense of community across the country, I think, really, which is a bit of an unusual thing for the UK because, I mean, full disclosure, I am very left-wing and liberal. You know, I personally feel like the country's gone down a very strange path in the last decade. Well, not strange, just a path that I don't really agree with. And I think this situation has shown how much of that was driven by politics and ideology for personal and political gain, really. You know, because as soon as it's come down to it, all of those orthodoxies that seem to drive things like Brexit have been, well, not even things like Brexit, the orthodoxies that have driven, you know, the liberal right consensus have been pretty quickly jettisoned when push comes to shove. I mean, you know, we've moved a long way in 2 weeks from there's no such thing as society. And the layers of irony, the numbers of chickens that have come home to roost politically in this country, again, in an incredibly short space of time is actually incredible. You know, it's the famous, I think it's Macmillan quote about politics, events, dear boy, events. You know, you've gone from Johnson winning the majority in December and seemingly having a clear path to, you know, enact the mandate that was given to them by the British people by Brexit and the last election, to within 3 months the Conservative Party telling banks to dip into shareholder funds to prop themselves up and underwriting 80% of worker wages in the biggest public money giveaway in the history of this country. I mean, no one saw that coming. And, you know, to bring it back to the point, it clearly shows how much of the dialogue of the last decade has just been a party political narrative that no one, when it comes down to it, actually believed. Because, you know, if you look at Michael Gove, this country's had enough of experts. There he is on the TV, flanked by his experts. Boris Johnson, you know, all these people have spent a decade not giving the NHS enough funding. Suddenly their only slogan is protect our NHS. So I really hope that those things are the things that endure, because for me they're the things that make the country that we live in, the UK. That's all I can talk about, really. You know, I think that's what makes this a good place to live, really, that social liberalism that is our traditional history and that has been subverted in the last decade. So we shall see about that, I guess, won't we? Question 5, what bits of getting back to normal do you hope will not return? Well, like I just said, really, the stuff that had been promoted by the political landscape in the UK, I hope doesn't return. You know, it's going to be pretty hard to put that genie back in the bottle now that they've spent all that public money on the things that they've spent a decade telling us we couldn't afford. But I think more generally, if you look at the great upheavals of the past, and, you know, this is obviously, and again, this is not an original observation, this is obviously up there with like the Great Depression, the Second World War, the First World War. It is that seismic for our society. It's a once in a century event, this. You know, those upheavals have led to the great social reform projects that, when you look back now, are the pride of our nation, and probably aren't spoken about too much in the States, but are probably, you know, the most spectacular public achievements in the States. You know, the NHS, the Second World War, was a result of the Second World War, and it was seemingly the result of like, well, if we can put all this national resource into a war, why can't we put all this national resource into something that's actually going to benefit the public in peace? The National Health Service, which, you know, 80 years later is still the defining achievement of our country, really, in the post-war years. Or you look at the post-Great Depression federal projects in the States, like the New Deal or the Civil Works Administration. You know, again, that came off the back of huge economic hardship in that country. So even though this is obviously a grim time right now, you have to be hopeful that the same thing's going to come out of this, that, you know, there will be some kind of social reforms on whatever level. I've got to be honest, I'm not hopeful for climate, because I think one of the things this has shown is the fact that, you know, our politicians were prevaricating, when there was a deadly virus on the doorstep. So I don't know how far down the line climate change is going to have to get before they actually agree to do something. But you do have to hope that something socially positive will come out of this, really, which is my hope off the back of all this. Anything else you want to share right now with others? Project, poem, songbook, action words? Well, I already mentioned the podcast stuff that I'm doing, which has been great. I'm doing some live podcast stuff on my Instagram channel at We Look Sideways every Friday with Patagonia, which I've been very much enjoying. I liked a couple of quotes, actually, that I saw recently. There's one by Isaac Asimov, which is probably a bit punchy and anti-American, but it's on the money. The quote is, "There is a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there always has been. The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread winding its way through our political and cultural life." Is the good bit. "Nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge." Now, doesn't that just sum up the last 20 years of the public consensus / narrative? And then I saw something on Twitter the other day, which was, I'll paraphrase, but he said, if it's taken this crisis to realise that the system is flawed, then you are privileged, which is also something that struck home. So those two quotes gave me a bit of food for thought. What else? I've been enjoying the podcast 13 Minutes to the Moon, which is on BBC Sounds app, which is a really, really brilliantly produced, essentially, radio serial. First part is about Apollo 11 and the second part is about Apollo 13. Great yarn, very well produced, very well told. I also really enjoyed a book that I was reading recently, which is called To Calais in Ordinary Time, and it's a historical novel which I very much enjoyed. So it's about randomly enough, it's about the plague. It's about the plague taking out, sweeping across Europe, and how a group of pilgrims cope with it, which I coincidentally started reading about 3 days before this all kicked off. So it was kind of weirdly prescient and also a bit disturbing, but just a bloody good book, really. So yeah, To Calais in Ordinary Time, if you fancy something to read. All right, nice one. See you later.
So there you go. That's I think I'm going to call that an episode. That was episode 1. Reflections from the Great Pause. This is going to be a small experimental series inspired by Charlie Gladstone's brilliant idea, which you can check out on the Mavericks podcast. But yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. Must go and cook dinner for my young Padawans. So another one coming probably in the next day or so, if I can get it all together. I'm going to play out with a song which George McCallum also sent me with his answers, which is a song recorded by his girlfriend Jess, which apparently she wrote 2 weeks ago in the lockdown, and it's called Don't Wake Up Baby. So until next time, take good care out there. Peace and out.
So much has changed in a day. Too scared to keep watching, and too scared to look away. I need direction, don't know how to behave. Gravity keeps on knocking me down, keeps on tearing me down in waves. This new reality doesn't seem real to me, like a million films I've seen. It's like a bad dream. Don't wake up, baby, the world has changed. Things are so much nicer when you're sleeping. Don't wake up, baby, the world has changed. Things are so much nicer when you're sleeping. Gone tomorrow, but here today. The world was broken and in need of a change. Change of heart and a change of pace. I can still sit here, feel the sun on my face. This new reality doesn't seem real to me, like a million films I've seen. It's like a bad dream. Don't wake up, baby, the world has changed. Things are so much nicer when you're sleeping.